Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Great to see the numbers rising. And of course, we encourage everyone to use the chat to engage with this incredible group of leaders. As everyone continues to take their virtual seat, we are going to officially kick off this International Women's Week event. Welcome everyone to Women Scientists Shaping the Future of AI, a feature International Women's Week event. It is an honor to join you today. My name is Sonia Shorey. I have the privilege of serving as the Vice President, Strategy, Marketing, and Communications for Invest Ottawa, lead economic development agency for knowledge-based industries here in our region, as well as Bayview Yards, Ottawa's one-stop business acceleration shop. And I'm privileged to also bring greetings and welcome from our colleagues at Women in AI Canada, the co-partner with Invest Ottawa on this important event. AI and machine learning, we know, are giving rise to breakthroughs that are going to impact every single facet of our lives. These technologies are fueling innovations from vaccine development to CAVs and climate change, just to name a few. According to the World Economic Forum and LinkedIn in 2020, only 22% of all jobs in AI are held by women, with even few holding them in senior roles. Moreover, Wired and Element AI reports show that only 12% of leading ML researchers are women. This is a statistic that simply must change. We are here today with 6 incredible scientists, leaders in the AI and machine learning field to help inspire more women to pursue a career in these exciting areas and to build a more diverse, high-performance pipeline of top tech talent in these fields. We look forward to this afternoon of inspiration and actionable insight from the brilliant women scientists who are performing groundbreaking AI and machine learning work in so many fields. And with that introduction, it is now my pleasure to hand over our virtual mic to Dr. Ellie Ardekani, someone we have the privilege of supporting and collaborating with through our work at Invest Ottawa. Thank you, Ellie, for championing this particular event today. It's an honor to support you. We look forward to an incredible event.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sonia, for the introduction. It's absolutely an honor to have you introducing the panel. And thank you, everyone who are joining us globally today for this panel discussion. And welcome to the Women Scientists Shaping the Future of AI. As Sonia mentioned, my name is Ellie Ardekani, and I'm your host today. I'm a scientist and a high-tech entrepreneur with focus on digital and AI solutions. My background comes from oil and gas and energy. I recently joined Women in AI, which is a non-for-profit do tank global organization working toward gender-inclusive AI. We are a community-driven initiative bringing empowerment, knowledge, and active engagement and collaboration to the community. On the chat box, I'm going to put 2 links. The first one would be the link to connect with me on LinkedIn. Please do not hesitate to do that. I would love to have a conversation with you. And the second one is the link to the global website for Women in AI. I'm leading a volunteer team here in Ottawa, as I'm the city lead for Ottawa Chapter, to make sure we have events throughout the year that are related to AI topic, and they are related to representation of women and empowerment of women in this field. So if you would like to take part in these efforts, it would be great to have a conversation and see where you fit. So without further ado, let's talk science. I love this part. We have an outstanding panel of speakers today. I'm so glad that they took the opportunity to come here and share some insight with you guys, despite the busy schedule. So we're going to go around the room and do a little bit of an introduction to every single speaker. Maybe Rima, we start with you.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much, Ellie. Thank you, Invest Ottawa, for making this possible. I'm absolutely honored to be on this panel. This panel is filled with leading and inspiring women. It's you who made me who I am today. It's people like you who made me inspired to be who I am today. I am an entrepreneur, an AI scientist by self-taught. I've built a few tech companies, built some cool technology that people use today, but I also learned a lot along the way, and I hope I can share some of this learning today with you. Thank you.
Awesome. Nasrin, you want to go next?
Sure. Thank you very much, Ali, and thank you, Invest Ottawa, for organizing such events to inspire more women around the world. And very good morning, good evening, good afternoon, or good night to all our attendees from around the world. My name is Nasrin. I am an AI and smart grid scientist. So my specialties lies in the intersection of smart power grid and artificial intelligence. So I'm working as a senior AI and smart grid scientist for Blue Wave AI, and we specialize in making SaaS products for our utility customers and microgrid operators. So I will be happy to talk about what we do in real life on daily basis with application of AI in smart power grids.
Awesome, great having you here. Sepi, you want to go next?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I wanted to say thank you to Ellie and also to Invest Ottawa for organizing this event, and I'm very honored to be in the panelists. I am Sepida Karimi. I have a seismology background and working as lead research scientist with a company called Nanometrics here in Ottawa, in Canada. Thank you, Ellie.
Awesome. Lindsay?
Sure. Thank you also to Ellie and to Invest Ottawa. I'm really excited about being here today. So my background might be a little different from most people's on this panel. I actually have all of my research background in the life sciences. So my experiences with ecosystem ecology and biogeochemistry. So like microbes in the soil and greenhouse gases, which is how I got excited about working with data in the first place. And about 4 years ago, I pivoted into tech, and I've worked on a bunch of different industry and machine learning or AI domains. So a whole bunch of work in explainability and more recently natural language processing. And I'm excited to talk about all that today.
Awesome, great having you here. Maria.
Okay, I'm unmuted now. Okay, so yes, my name is Maria, and again, I'm truly grateful for being here, and thank you, Ellie, for the invitation and Invest Ottawa, because they are helping us, and this is a part of my introduction, because we are now entering Canada as Logic AI. We are a machine learning company, advisory company, but we also build tailored to measured software systems. And actually Invest Ottawa is helping us to set up here. But what makes us a bit different than other consulting companies and in tech is that we are trusted by Kaggle and by Google to build with them the biggest community of AI experts in the world. And we are already 5 million strong. And this is also like my research of study how to build tech communities that are super efficient and can be helpful to education.
Awesome, fabulous. Really appreciate the introduction. Really excited to have you guys here. So one more thing for our audience, we do have a Q&A box. Please go ahead and put your questions in there. And in the midway of the panel discussion, I try to push in some of the questions that you have for our panelists to answer. If you have a specific question from a specific person, please put a name in there so I know who that question is going to go toward. We're going to start with some of the questions that I think, when we think about it, and Sonia just talked about, World Economic Forum, reporting 22% of jobs in AI being held by women, and fewer jobs are actually in senior roles. And when you think about women scientists, they technically hold about 10% of the jobs in the market. So, the first question that I would like to ask is going toward, individuals that are coming from traditional STEM background, and they kind of pivoted into the AI field. And I think Lindsay and Seppi, you are a prime example of that. So the question that we have is for some of our audience that they have a STEM background coming from math, physics, science, engineering disciplines that are not directly related to comp sci and computing science. What would be the recommendations that you would tell them so they can secure employment in the AI focused companies? So maybe we start with you, Lindsay, and then Seppi, you can take the charge.
Sure. So I think that the obvious, short, easy answer to that question of how you would move into the AI field from a different background has to do with the technical skills. And of course, those exist. Get used to coding, get familiar with Python or R, consider online courses in machine learning or AI. But what I've actually found are that a lot of the other skills of a good scientist are just as important, both in terms of moving into the field and then working within the field. So the first number one thing I would suggest is ask questions and be curious. Talk to people, do informational interviews. Working in AI is really vague and really a broad umbrella. Try to figure out what area you're more excited about, what kinds of questions you want to answer, like AI domain, and also like industry or problem space domain. Figure out what you're excited about. But then there are a handful of other just general scientific skills that I think are really useful. So thinking about, knowing how to think about complex systems that are defined by physical rules but have interacting parts and then emerging properties. That's something that comes out of a scientific training that is also really useful for AI. Also being comfortable asking technical questions without worrying about whether you look silly, or at least not giving into the worry that you might look silly. It's by definition uncomfortable to be outside your comfort zone, but it's the only way you're going to learn and the only way you're going to grow. And in general, it actually is helpful to everyone around you if you're asking those questions that you think maybe everyone understands, but sometimes people just haven't thought about them yet. Yeah, so those are my recommendations generally.
Awesome, thanks, Lindsay. Seppi?
So yes, to me, AI is on its own is a scientific kind of field, and what makes it kind of desirable for the employers is the application of it. As Lindsay was mentioning, they are like different packages that people can use in using like Python language. There are lots of like libraries and platforms that people can take advantage and implement the ideas. You don't necessarily need to be software developer to use Python to do the coding. And at the end of the day, in our cases, we have been using this Python-based coded things that we wrote as scientists in the production environment. So it's all good. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that there are many really good AI courses out there that many of them are freely available. So you can teach yourself and learn how to do AI. And then what is very important, at least to me, is the experience. You can gain this experience in different ways. If you are already in the industry, having a job, pick one of the very interesting projects that you are already working on and apply the machine learning techniques that you learned and see what are the outcomes. If you're not working, it's also completely okay. You can take a fun project, define the project from A to Z, and then focus on the outcomes. What you wanted to get from this process. You can look at solving a challenge, coming up like getting some new results, or you can just make a process more efficient. Define some sort of KPIs for yourself, and then kind of look back at your results and see how successful you are. Have these kind of experience on your resume. When I'm hiring someone in our team for AI expert kind of position, I am looking for experience, and fun projects is completely acceptable project. So Make sure that you are demonstrating from A to Z what you have done and focus on the outcomes. And again, ensure you don't need to be software developer. You need to think out of the box and you need to accept the challenge. So these are the keys to success in getting some sort of positions when they are not in AI, when it's not completely your area of like background before. Thank you.
Amazing. So what I hear is that, you know, the first step is to mix the passion that you have for the science with the AI techniques that are readily available and experiment as much as possible. Which is a really good segue to the next question, Rima, and that question will come for you. You know, I have spent 11 years of my life getting 3 different degrees, bachelor, master, PhD in university. And, you know, these days there are so many resources out there that people can take advantage of, especially younger generations who are digital savvy. They can take advantage of and get into the data science world, to the AI field, and that won't cost them thousands of dollars in tuition, right? You know, Rima, you direct yourself as, or you present yourself as a self-taught data scientist and AI expert. Can you tell us, you know, share with us some of the insights that you gained throughout the years, and some recommendations for aspiring women who would want to follow your path?
Yeah, thank you, Ali. It's interesting because you know, the way I landed in data science and AI came from my background, my history. So my dad was a physics scientist, so he taught me and my brother programming at a very young age. We were like, I don't know, 8, and he was going and trying to teach us how to, you know, draw dragons on a computer with code. So, you know, we grew up also to be very curious people, and I think any scientist of any kind share curiosity, right, ladies? Like, science comes with curiosity, right? You want to be curious, and I think that's what drove me into data science. I wanted to answer questions, and big questions, and the more I wanted to learn about the world around me through code, because that was a tool I had at hand. I was like, oh, I have, like, if I write a machine learning algorithm, that will solve it for me, and I can find the solution. And this is how these things came together for me. And you know, I'm a Canadian immigrant, and when I came to Canada, it was like Disneyland for AI. Like, it's everywhere. It's everybody's building AI. There are, you know, from automotive to energy to agriculture to, you know, I'm interested in consumer products, and even then, AI, Canada is very empowering because we're surrounded by scientists and so on. So, like, going back to the tips, really, I think Lindsay and Sepeti covered a lot of it, because there is so much knowledge online. Like, one of the top courses in machine vision are provided by Professor Feifei Li from Stanford. It's fully free on YouTube. Like, it's probably the most important piece of education in machine vision, and it's free on YouTube. You know, it's there's so much. There are a lot of papers, but you can start small. You can start easy. You know, a friend of mine is building a dating app, and she wanted to answer some questions about her users' behavior. So we went on a Zoom call, and we started looking in the database and writing some queries, and then we tried to model them. And she came from, you know, natural sciences background, but we just did that. And then by the end of the evening, you know, it was probably a 48 hours of like 7 coffees. But by the end of that, I was like, hey, do you know, you're a data scientist now? She was like, really? So yeah, it's, you know, the door is open. It really is. And there's no better time than now. So yeah.
Awesome. That's an awesome perspective. To lead with your curiosity. That's all matters, and you will find a path. That's an awesome recommendation, Rima. So, I mean, today on this panel, we have people who are working for corporates, and we have entrepreneurs who are building their businesses and their AI products. So as a founder of a tech company myself with AI solutions, I know some of the challenges and opportunities around building and monetizing AI products. So, you know, we have two founders here today on our panel. Maria, maybe this question would be answered by you first. Can you tell us a little bit about Logic AI, the company that you are building and the product that you are working on? And what would be your recommendation for the audience who are interested in building their own AI startups?
Sure, gladly. Actually, there's a lot to tell, but I don't have an hour, just a couple of minutes, so I will be very quick. What Logic AI does, and the company that we have created, we provide our clients with the high quality tailored systems, right, based on AI, on any kind of AI there exists. And these are, like I said, maybe tailor-made, and we work with the biggest companies. Like, for example, I was an advisor to the board for Rolls-Royce. We worked with Dior, with Louis Vuitton, with many other companies across the globe. We already have 2 offices. So as you can see, and my message to you is this area, as Rima said, grows rapidly. And this is good information for you, because everyone can find a spot for herself or himself in this world, despite of their background, as long as they have the curiosity, right? So this is what we do. But I mentioned that we also lead the community of data scientists across the globe. We are quite huge, and we are active, over 5 million people. And actually, while leading this community, we came up to the conclusion that we feel responsible for what our community members build across the globe. And sometimes we build ethical stuff, but sometimes not necessarily. And I think that you know what I mean. So now we decided a year ago that as Logic AI, we will build an ethical recommendation system, because we believe that the recommendation system help us make decisions. It's crucial that they are ethical, right? And they are non-biased. So actually, we have built this the system already, and first clients, of course, to come. But we decided that this has to be practical. So if you ask us, what do? We build ethical AI products, and we think and we feel that this is the final moment to do it. Like, let's stop talking about it, how AI, ethical AI or AI and ethics should look like. Let's build a product that is purely ethical. So actually, as you can see, there is a lot of options, and it's super interesting. And to all of you who think, yes, AI is super cool, I will do something about it using its power, I would say, go for it. Just go for it, because the market is hungry for more. Despite maybe you have heard that it's like a red ocean, it's not. Seriously, new technologies come along every day. So there's always a place for you if you know what you want to achieve. So my advice is also consider AI a tool. AI, sorry, I hope that our panelists, maybe they will confront me, but I believe that AI, it's not the end. It's just a tool, and it depends on us how we use it. So think what problem in the world you would like to solve with AI tools, but don't focus on the technology, because the technology will come. So I always quote one of my friends who said, I don't care if your product is AI, machine learning, deep learning, reinforcement learning, whatever you have over there, and how many data points you have put into the product. Just tell me what the product does. So actually, according to this, just focus on an actual life and worldly problem and solve it with AI. And I believe that you have all kinds of products all around you, and just pick a right technology. It's easy to learn.
That's awesome. I mean, it's focusing on the why, right? Why are you using AI? Beside the fact that what is a problem that you're solving, the why is more important. There are so many problems out there, the real world problems, that they don't actually need to be, you know, including AI methodologies. There already are analytics algorithms that are doing their job fine. So why we are actually including in our AI in any products that we are building, that's the question that has to be answered. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Rima, what about Genbu? Tell us a little bit about your company and some of the challenges, if you had any, that you experienced throughout your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's possible to build a startup or anything without challenges, right? It's you're trying to build something new. It's you're trying to create something that is new in some way, right? So there's adoption challenges. There are your hiring challenges when you have much less money than the big guys and all that. But I think I started my first company when I was 22, and that was probably about 10 years ago. So and now 10 years forward, and it's still the same challenges, still hiring, still raising capital, it's still, iterating over the product, listening to customers, it's all the same. But it's exciting time now to build in AI, and we're building a solution that solves for access to data. If you're building AI, one of the biggest problems that companies have is access to data. And we're focusing on helping businesses that have consumer products that are on mobile to learn from mobile applications without centralizing the application's data, and to go learn from other applications that they didn't publish without centralizing data. And that solves for a lot of regulation and privacy issues, and hopefully reduce a lot of cost. I'm really excited about it. We have a patent pending. We're piloting right now with in the dating apps world and in fitness wearables world. And I'm really excited because we're also seeing, mobiles are becoming really powerful right now, mobile devices. Like, you can see so much happening on them. Even OEMs, like cars manufacturers, they're using mobile applications to sync the car's data with the phone and make it accessible to consumer. Wearables are using phones to make their data accessible to consumers. So these devices are becoming more and more powerful, and we can do so much with them instead of trying to copy data around in old fashion from one server to another and try to process them. There's so much. I think there's so much opportunity. I'm really excited to hire more people. I'm gonna just throw it out there, since we're a scientist panel. If there are other scientists here in this panel and you're interested in working on cool new stuff, come and join me and reach out. I promise you a good challenge. Like Ellie said, there's definitely stuff we could solve for. But the one thing that I want to call out for, Canada has so much talent, and COVID has given us definitely a lot of challenges, but also some opportunities. We can, as Canadian businesses today, build for global businesses. We can solve for global problems with much less barrier to entry. We can do it from our Zoom window, and that, I think, is a situation we can all stand up for, and hopefully foster not only for talent and innovation and R&D in Canada, but also foster for building businesses and grow them. And a shout out to Invest Ottawa for supporting entrepreneurs in their journey in that way. So thank you.
Amazing. I absolutely agree, 100%. Yeah, and the shameless plug, that's a good one, because we know that there are a lot of people who are interested to get their feet wet, get into the industry. Why not starting with a startup, starting with a really good challenge, and build your career up? So thanks for sharing your insights. I mean, all of you guys are recognized scientists who directly are contributing in one way or another in advancement of AI-related technologies in different sectors. Maybe we go to Nasrin, and maybe we ask you about how your AI-enabled models are applied to real-world problems. I know that you're coming from a very, very interesting industry, the renewable energy. So we would love to hear about some of your work.
Sure, thank you very much, Ali. I have to admit it is interesting. Well, I will give a little bit of a context of the problem that we are solving, and then I will explain how do we solve it in the real world scenario. So basically, one of the front lines of combating the climate change is to turn into renewables and stay away from fossil fuels. And if you really Google what can I do to combat climate change, the first and second recommendations are put a solar panel on your rooftops and drive electric. So, but our grid has not been built for such complex proliferation of new loads or new distributed generations. So these brings complexities, uncertainties associated with intermittency of renewable generation, the fact that we can't control when we generate, and then our customers, the consumers of electricity, now are becoming prosumers. They are producing and consuming at the same time from different parts of the grid. So all this complexity cannot be solved with traditional mathematical-based optimization models anymore. So on the other hand, thanks to ICT, we are generating billions of measurements from various parts of our grid. So what AI does in energy domain, it takes into account all these millions of variables, millions of data points like weather, demand, location, generation assets, measurements from different parts of the grid, substations, smart meter data, and proactively crunches on them and decides what is the best action to do in such a complex system. And it has to be done in real time. So that is where our products come in. So our AI-enabled products crunch all these data. We use high-performance computing and train our AI models in our center edge distributed platform, where in our center platform we use all this historical data and we train our models and then dispatch them into our edge. And over there, we connect directly with our customers' assets and dispatch what's the best action, how to control them. And this allows our utility customers, microgrid operators, fleet operators to maximize their utilization of renewable energies or optimize the utilization of their assets. So I will give you an example. So we are very proud to actually deploy the very first automated real-time AI energy dispatch in a Canadian utility. It is for the city of Summerside. So city of Summerside is a very unique city. It is in, for those who are not from Canada, it's in Prince Edward Island. And it has 47% of wind penetration. It's actually the largest in the continent. And this city buys its hourly energy. It's 45 minutes ahead of an hour from an upper grid. And if he's not accurate with this estimation of how much demand, how much energy it needs, it will pay penalty. So instead of over provisioning its generations and underutilizing its wind generation, what we did for them, we took into account the city load. We forecasted the city load, we forecasted the wind, we forecasted the variable electricity prices, and ultimately using our AI-enabled models, dispatched energy 45 minutes ahead an hour. To basically let them how much energy they will need to purchase from the upper grid. And I have to say, one of the really difficult things to do when you are working with a real-time dispatch, with a real-time data, is the data quality. Now, it is, I guess, everybody would agree with me that when you are indulged in a real-time world, developing a real-time, the real-world products, your quality depends on the data that you receive. I mean, data is the fuel of AI, right? So if it is a bad data, then you will have challenges to sustaining your quality. And now when you are dealing with historical data, that's fine. You can see the anomalies, you can clean them, you can engineer anomaly detection in your pipeline. But when it is in real time, you have to basically anticipate the potential data anomalies. And when the application is novel, it's even more challenging to anticipate those facts. So we have been able to successfully deploy our product in the grid, and we have yielded 50% improvement on the energy scheduling accuracy for this city. Now, I would tell you what this means in terms of money, but more importantly, what does this mean in terms of how much carbon we actually reduced and how we positively, as a clean tech company with AI, contributed to the environment. So we reduced 4,100 tons of CO2 emission. So what does that mean? That means that if there was one passenger vehicle that would have derived for 10 million miles, that would be equivalent to how much CO2 it would generate. And we reduced that. This would also be equal to 68,000 tree seedlings. You let them grow, that would be how much CO2 they would eliminate. So we are very proud that we actually eliminated this amount of CO2 emission from the world. And just to add, as a closing for my explanation, and I very much agree with my fellow panelists about how one indulges into AI. And I also, I want to add and complement that it is very important that one acquires a knowledge of how to apply AI in the real world. So beside the courses, beside the online trainings and everything, guys, get your hands dirty with real data. Startups are one of the best places in the world to get the knowledge, the domain knowledge, and how to apply AI in the real world. So I would say trainings, basically to become as a part of a startup, as a co-op student, take the opportunities. Nowadays, the R&D is happening in the startups even at a faster rate than universities. I can tell you that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree wholeheartedly. That is a really awesome point. We are really impatient to see what the future holds for Blue Wave AI, because you are pretty much in the intersection of renewable energy, clean tech, and AI, and that's a really good place to be at this moment, at this time. That is really awesome. Really glad that you could share some of the insights about Blue Wave AI and how these AI models are helping to do predictive work, which would have not been possible if you would not were using the AI models that you have. That is great. So let's move this question to Seppi. So Seppi comes from kind of the same background that I'm coming from, so energy. And the company Nanometrics that she is elite scientist for is focused on microseismic, well, technically induced seismicity monitoring. So when you think about earthquakes and how it's important to monitor what's happening in terms of seismic activities around the globe, this company is the company that is processing all of those data sets that are coming from across the world to give a heads up to everybody that, hey, if they are in danger of having such bigger events or bigger earthquakes that can actually danger the environment, but also the human who are in that area. So Seppi, why don't you tell us how you guys are taking leverage of AI models in your organization?
Thanks, Ellie, for the introduction of Nanometrics. Yes, we are coming from the same field and some kind of same background. It is an interesting kind of industry. I'm sorry. So as Ellie was mentioning, Nanometrics is what we do at Nanometrics is that Nanometrics provide seismic solutions, seismic monitoring solutions. We have two divisions. The division that I am working with is the service provider. Most of our clients are coming from the oil and gas industry, and we have networks all over the globe. We provide turnkey solutions. So it means that we design a network, we deploy the stations, the seismic stations in different areas, and then we transmit the data back in the office, and we process the data. So I'm going to focus right now on one of the use cases that we had from AI. We have been implementing AI in different applications, but this one is the one that has actually changed the way that we do business, and also changed the way that we provide the service to our clients to have a safer oil and gas operations. So as I mentioned, we have tons of seismic stations around the globe, and with some sort of focus on the North America. We transmit the data online. So what we are dealing with is enormous amount of data to process. Manually going through all this data and processing it is very time and resource consuming, and doing it in real time is close to impossible. So what we have done is that within our team, we have developed an algorithm that going through the data and process them, and at the end generates a seismic catalog that is very, very close to the manually processed seismic catalog. So looking at the outcomes of this, this development, we have noticed that there is no loss of sensitivity. We have been improving the old algorithms results by 90%. So our new catalog, automated catalog, which is based on like AI algorithms, has 90% more accuracy in terms of the events locations. And we have seen a significant reduction in the rate of false positives. And in terms of the running time, you can run it in near real time in the matter of seconds. So there is no backlog for the automatic processing. Essentially, this new development is the, we call it AI analyst. So we have a new analyst working 24/7, no sick day, and working the whole time. We have been using this method since, I believe, 5 years ago. Over time, we have been improving it, and it has been applied on all the networks that we monitor. And as I mentioned, this is one of the examples of our use cases from machine learning. This development, specific development, has changed the way that we provide the service to our clients. And it actually, with the reduced in the response time, in the processing time, they can do a safer operation when it comes to their oil and gas operation. So thank you for asking. I would be happy to talk about other use cases of AI, but this one is the most significant one for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree 100%. Automation and removing the bias that comes from human eye when you're dealing with, you know, large data sets, that's one of the things that AI can actually resolve for all of us in different industries. That was a really good explanation of how that works for your organization, how you're dealing with it. So let's shift gears and go toward talking about how inclusive and diverse we are here in this panel discussion. Obviously, some of you guys are immigrants to Canada, so am I. And obviously, gender parity, diversity, and inclusion is a big topic when it comes to building unbiased AI products. Maria, you're probably the most expert in this area as you're working on your ethical AI product. What are some of the risks that can be associated with not having an inclusive and diverse workforce when it comes to developing and building AI products?
Thank you, Ellie, for this question. It's super important, in my opinion, to raise this point, because as you already know, we have built a product that is purely ethical, and it's already ready. And while building it, we have asked ourselves, okay, so we'll have product features. So we have more than 20 ethical features, a lot of, let me say, elements that makes it also efficient. So it's not only very strong because we have, for example, our team have won Rex's competition, which is the biggest competition for recommendation systems in the world. And we have translated it into the product, but not only, like the core is ethical. So we asked ourselves, okay, so we will have features, lots of them. But what about it? If the team is not ethically oriented and ethically built, it cannot build an ethical product. So it doesn't make sense, it just won't. So we needed a diverse team, and we have created it. So from different cultures, different backgrounds, different countries, actually with different languages. And we have asked their opinions. And actually I was surprised because I assumed that my ethical approach and my ethical view it's like obvious one, right? Because this is how I was brought. And actually my colleagues from the team said, no, we think about it differently. And a lot of discussions led us to a truly ethical product. So we need the diverse teams. But your question was what happens if there is no such team? So I believe that all AI teams should be unbiased and should be aware of what how unofficial can AI be and how harmful it can be to the society. To give you just a couple of examples, of course, we know that inclusive teams build inclusive systems and biased systems. So these are, first of all, biased data, biased outcomes, information bubbles, AI solutions that are just blind to the diversity. And the outcome can be as bad as, for example, presidential elections 5 years ago in USA, or Brexit, or to like not raise much more, because all of us know that AI can be harmful. So this leads to, first of all, social inequalities, and definitely doesn't make our world a better place. So I would call to all AI teams in the world, just remember, if you are building a truly global product, you should have a global team. So be open to different views, because based on my experience, I was totally wrong. And I'm super grateful to my team that they, let me say, shown me their own way. And yes, this is Reco AI. Truly ethical, delivered by an ethical and diverse team.
Awesome. That is a great answer. Lindsay, maybe we bring this question to you and see what opinions you have to share with us on this topic.
Thank you. Maria, I thought that was a really great answer in terms of thinking about some of the issues, like the AI related issues of having a non-diverse team or non-diverse viewpoints going into building systems. What I was thinking about on the issue of diversity, there are a lot of different axes for diversity, and obviously the one that I am more eligible to speak on is women in AI, and my experience may not reflect a lot of other people's experiences. I think there are a lot of ways to answer the question of how you can build a more diverse workforce at the societal level before you even get to the workforce, when you're talking about like kids learning coding and the kind of encouragement that girls get in school and all sorts of those things. But the ones that I wanted to focus on are, first of all, the flexibility that women and families and really everybody gets in the workplace, which I think has been really clearly emphasized by the experience of working from home and COVID and all of the additional burdens that have been placed on individuals and families during the pandemic. And then the other one that I wanted to muse about a little bit was the general experience of being a woman applying to positions in AI and then working in AI generally. So in terms of flexibility for women and families, I think things like having a supportive parental leave and flexible return to work policy for both mothers and fathers, like they both increase equity or equality across genders and sexes. I think that's extremely important. There are studies that have shown that affects the numbers of women who return to or stay in the workforce. I think also flexibility in terms of work hours or other needs, of course, important for families, important for parents, but also individuals who might have different reasons why they need to map out different times to like get out of their house and get some sun in the middle of the day, since we don't leave our houses these days, or other things related to mental health. So those are kind of examples of things that you can build into the workplace to support families, support women, but that actually have beneficial effects on everybody and make everybody's work experience better and make everybody more productive and healthier. And also you could think about that in terms of benefits like RSPPs and health benefits and all of those, so sort of contextual things. The other thing I wanted to point out is that I think that the feelings of inclusion and belonging, as well as the opposite feelings around being out of place or an exception, are sort of these consistent and pervasive things. And somebody asked in the chat, what are the things you can do to ensure that women are treated equally and that there are balanced opportunities? And one thing I really struggle with is that my initial response is to speak up when you have those feelings. So for example, I've interacted with people who tend to sort of casually talk about like the finance guys or the marketing guys without thinking about how the language that they're using affects the other people in the room. And I'm the kind of person who will then talk to the person afterwards and be like, hey, by the way, when you say things like that, then it has, different effects on different people and I don't feel great about it. But I think it's kind of a complicated thing because I don't think that women or any individual should have to carry that burden of always being the one to try to make change. I've been in positions in the workplace where I've fought for parental leave support. And that took a lot of energy and some risk for me. And I was okay doing that. But at the same time, we as individuals shouldn't always have to be the ones to put that energy into it and to take on that risk. Another example of like one of the little things in the work environment that affects that with wording is phrasing in job ads when people say things like coding ninja. That comes up a lot. And also technical interviews. There's a wide range of the way they happen. Sometimes they're fairly time intensive, and that ends up favoring people who have that time to spend. So again, that's not necessarily parents, not necessarily people who have families or obligations outside of their main full-time job. So on one hand, I think that it's important to speak up when you see those things, but on the other hand, I think that everybody should be reflecting within the workplace, whatever role you're in, on how things like the words that you use, the teams that you structure, the benefits that you have at a company, like how all of those things are affecting opportunity across the board for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. And I think like in general, a stereotyping in any way, it's not helpful for creating an inclusive environment. Either it's by job title, by expertise, by gender, by race. Neither one of those is actually appropriate to do. That was a really great point. I think at this moment, maybe we take a couple of questions that we have on the Q&A panel, and then if we have enough time, we get back to the questions that we previously were going along. So one of our audience is asking, do you feel that graduate studies, in particular PhD, is beneficial in your field? Is it worth proceeding it? So from the PhDs in the panel, we have many of them. So maybe one of you guys want to go ahead and answer the question?
I can take that
Sure.
question to answer. This is a great question. I was thinking it myself when I was doing my PhD. Now, the thing is that I always recommend, if you want to spend your big chunk of time studying a PhD for 4 to 5 years, then ask yourself this. PhD is a license for you to practice an expertise. So ask yourself this, is what I'm doing going to be useful in the next 4 years? So because the moment you start doing it, it's gonna take 4 years for you to become an expert in that field. And then only you have an opinion. You are able to influence and bring change. So when you want to become that person, then do your study first. What do you want to become? And then move backward from there. If you take a PhD like this with that in mind, then yes, it's gonna be useful. And another thing is, if you're pursuing a PhD, man or woman, we have to understand that I mean, let's focus on women, because I believe this is going to be more useful given the focus of the event. So one of the changes that we want to bring to this world is we want women to have more access to the positions of power, right? Because if we become influential, then we, as my colleague said, there is always, if we are at the position of power and we are interviewing a candidate, then we can understand the challenges that that candidate went into. And then that helps us to bring down the barriers for them. So the more women we have in education, the more women with PhDs, the more women getting the position of power, then those barriers come down and it paves the way for the people behind them. So I would say, yes, a very well thought of PhD, a very well oriented PhD is very useful.
Awesome. Lindsay, you want to add to
I do. So I spent, first of all, I think all of your points are very, very legitimate. I spent about a decade studying, like I said, greenhouse gases coming out of farm fields and coming out of like marine sediments. And I hit a point where I thought, I don't want to be in academia anymore. Has everything I've done in the past decade been useless? Like, I'm not going to be, I mean, I may end up going back in that direction in combining it with AI, but at that point I was thinking, if I leave this and I go into tech, has that been completely useless? And I very strongly think it was not useless. Well, okay, let me say that positively. I very strongly think it was useful. I think that when you're doing a PhD, you learn how to be an expert in something that is a very tiny subset of a certain field, and that can have use for your future career. But you also learn a lot about experimental design, diving into a topic, learning how to learn something new, learning how to ask good questions. And I think that all of those skills are things that I use every day and that make a difference in the kind of work that I'm doing. And then I knew somebody, I hope this isn't really true, but I knew somebody who said something like, man, you could have a PhD in basket weaving and that'll help you get a job in AI. There is something to the fact that if you have a PhD, it does open some doors, whether that's reasonable or not. But let me stick with the like scientific skill set that you built, even if the topic that you're studying is not directly related to an AI or machine learning field that you go into.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think PhD is a very extensive investment of time and effort. So I always tell people who are pursuing PhD or they are trying to get into a PhD program to be very determined right at the beginning, because there is a point in the middle that you're going to get a little bit exhausted and you're going to feel like, oh my God, this was such a big commitment. Why did I do this? But the minute that you come out of it, as Lindsay mentioned, you learn so much that you didn't even notice that you're learning these things. The scientific method of research, that's something that comes out of a PhD program. And that is a valuable piece beside the needed reading knowledge that you gain in your research area. That's awesome answer. Let's move on to the next question. I think this one is more about bias of AI. So there is a lot of talk about the bias of AI, both because of source of data. I'm assuming that this is more consumer sort of AI products. So source of data like social media and the scientists running it. What are each of the panelists doing about it? And how can we individually contribute to balance of the bias? So maybe I'll take this question to Maria. Maria, do you want to provide some insight here?
Sure, of course. I will comment very gladly. Okay, so thank you for this question. I know that there is like a lot of discussion on what ethics is, how it should look like, what is ethical, but not very practical, to be frank. So actually, we have searched for the last year. We have searched for an actual application, and we have divided them into 2 actions. Because still all the products and systems that you have mentioned, I mean, Rama, that asked this question, is like you have the client who buys it from data scientists by hiring them or by buying the system, and this client delivers it to its clients, I mean to us, end users. So it can be on both ways, because if I talk to some customers and their first question is, okay, so you have an ethical recommendation system, but does it work? If it's ethical, maybe it's not as efficient as a normal one, you know. And I said, it's equally efficient. You don't lose anything. You just benefit from it, like with ecological products. You remember what has happened, right? 20 years ago, nobody knew what bioproducts are. Now everybody's buying them and pays plus 10, 20% of the price gladly because they can see value in it, right? So this is how I talk to the company. So this is the first thing what we can do. Talk to companies or talk to management of the companies that we work for and tell them that ethical AI, it's not harmful to their business. It can be beneficial, but also we can do a lot of stuff from different angle, from the side of the customer, actually, end customer. And what we can do, we can support the products that are ethical, and we can ask. So we can ask, okay, so what do you do with my data? We can publish. We can also build our own products. And first of all, we as data scientists, remember, we still are scarce. So we decide who we work for, and we decide how we use our talents. So I believe this is also maybe not a direct, but still a question to an answer to your question.
Awesome. Thanks for the insight. Is there anyone else that wants to pitch in for this question? No, we're good. Okay, all right. Let's move on to the next question. How do you deal with hearing comments like, "Oh, you are a woman, you should apply because you get this," or any comments that ignores your credentials but only focuses on the fact that you are a minority or a woman? Who wants to go for this one? Okay, don't make me choose.
Don't we all deal with this? Don't we all deal with this all the time? It's I mean, indirectly or directly, or you know, it comes with the package, I guess. But I think the way I deal with it is just doing what I am set to do. Like I have a determination to build a product in AI, and I will just build my product in AI, and I will take it to the customer, and I will build the market around it, and I will, you know, apply for a patent, and I will raise capital, and I will hire people, and I will just keep going. And you know, people say, people think, and I think as by doing what we're doing, by moving forward, by being there and by changing, we're creating change, we're inspiring. Like I was inspired by other women before me, and you know, I made mistakes by stereotyping before. We all did. It's part of how we learn, you know. This is the bias of data, isn't it? It's we learn certain ways and then we get corrected and we move on. And I think we all have the capability to spread a compassionate message and to inspire for change.
Rima, this is really beautiful answer. I want to add to that. I mean, you're right. At the end of the day, there are people that are gonna criticize us for many different reasons, not just because of being woman, because of ethnicities, colors, because of the way we decide to show up in the society, because of the way we want to dress. But at the end of the day, I think we are the only limitation. Our imagination are the only limitation to where we can go. So I think every day we wake up and we are a collection of the choices that we make and the ones that we don't. So I think people like you, we should keep encouraging people, inspiring women. We should encourage people, especially women, to become risk takers and to take more positions like CEOs, like VCs, like entrepreneurs. And the more women like this we have, then I think then the bias in the data will be eliminated.
Yeah,
I think that's-
absolutely. Maria, you want to mention
Yes,
something?
a short comment from my side. Maybe it will be a bit controversial, but I don't mind if somebody has created an opportunities for us so the world becomes more equal, because it's unequal. You know, in 5 million data scientists that we lead, we have less than 15% of women. 15. It's like when I organize an event for the community, I have 5% of women coming because they don't want to come. They don't want to compete with men. And they are better, actually. But still, they don't want to compete. And still, this is a quite competitive world. So what I want to say is that if somebody creates an opportunity for us, and it's like we will get it because we are women. I know, I'm sure about my competences. I know that I'm strong. I don't mind. I will take the job. If this will show a young girl or some mentees that I have, and they say, oh, you are so courageous. And I said, you can be too. Just race for the thing that you think you are not good enough. And they say, yeah, but I have like 80% of the qualification. And I said, if a man has 50, he applies. And you, unless you have 120, you will go. And they say, yeah, so maybe I should do it. So if there is a gap, if there is any chance, still apply. If you get it because you are a woman, good. If you get it because you are strong and a woman, equally good, because you will show other women that you can. And I don't have any doubts that you will stay strong on this position. Like, it's like by your work and your job, delivered, you will show how strong you are on the position already, right?
Amazing. Yeah, I know it's controversial, but I think if it goes toward the same goal of equity and having a gender balance in workforce, I would go for it. Absolutely. Maybe, I mean, some of those comments that are coming out, you don't have the credential, you're just getting it because you're a woman. Sometimes you just have to be thinking about some people cannot be inclusive from inside. And we have to do that with our own thoughts and not think about, there are these obstacles around us and people are thinking about us. No one really cares about what you do and who you are and what's happening to you. It's at the end of the day, it's you, it's your family, it's your loved ones. So do it for them. Like, don't care what the society looks at you. Yeah, challenge them. Obviously, this is why we are here on this panel and we're talking about this topic. But at the same time, you still have to put in the work to succeed in, on your path to get where you want to get. And I absolutely agree with that. Awesome. We have some more questions. I think we can take one more. And that's toward, I guess, sufficient and equitable funding for women entrepreneurs in AI. That's a really good question. I mean, I can direct this question to Rima. My take on this question is that there is such a disbalance between funding available for men who are entrepreneurs and women, and AI is not an exclusion. So Rima, do you want to add some points to that question?
No, right on, Ellie. It's hopefully things will change and hopefully things will develop, but a thing to look at in a hopeful way, maybe. I came from the Middle East. The Middle East is maybe about 10, 12 years ago, there was probably a handful of VCs, and that was all of it. That's all you got. So, if there's a handful of VCs in total for all women and men, then compared to what you see now in the Middle East and now in North America, and you have millions of VCs, maybe not millions, but there's so many. So there's more funding for entrepreneurs in general, and that implies more funding for women, but it's not equitable by any way. And unfortunately, it went down post-COVID because people, got scared and went back to what they used to do before COVID. And the ones who were taking risks have changed their minds. But things like Women in AI, things like this panel are the catalyst of change. Let's keep doing this, and I'm sure things will get better.
Awesome. I love the positive attitude toward that. So we have 5 minutes to go, and I want to wrap up the conversation with, you know, some sort of inspiring quote from all of you guys. The theme of International Women's Day for 2020 was Choose to Challenge. And I would like you, every one of you, to share with us some of the ways that men and women can choose to challenge the status quo. Maybe we start with you, Lindsay.
Sure. I think I got excited about this earlier and sort of jumped ahead in my thinking. But I think the thing that I would say here is to always question yourself and your assumptions. So when you start thinking, I should do something, I should know something, I should be something, ask yourself why you're making that assumption, and whether you really want to do or be or know that thing. And I think the same thing goes for other people. So when you find yourself assuming that somebody else is a certain way or is doing something for a certain reason, ask yourself why then too, and maybe even ask them as well. And I think if everybody engaged more in that challenge, that process of challenging themselves, I think that would be really helpful. I think by definition, the status quo exists because it has existed, right? It's because of historical reasons, not because there's a logical one or a reasonable one, or we wanted to design it that way. And I think if we just ask ourselves why more often, we might choose to make changes.
Awesome. That was an awesome choose to challenge quote. Nasrin?
Sure. Well, I actually want to quote Steve Jobs, what he said in 1997's World Developer Conference. So he said that one of the hardest things when you want to effect a change is that some people are right in some areas. So as a scientist and working in a startup, we personally, as a company also, we are dealing with this every day. So we are doing things differently. We are doing what is not done. So this is risky. This needs bravery, but it also needs persistence and confidence. So I would say, be a risk taker. Don't be afraid of challenges. Well, you take a challenge, you lose, you will know that you won't have any regrets. But if you never take it, you will never know what would be the outcome.
Awesome. That's a great one. Choosing to challenge our own comfort zone and our limits, that's always the best way to go. Seppi, what about you? What do you think?
So you know that there is always a better way of doing things, and that is one thing. And the other thing is that I would suggest not being shy for others to hear your voice, and also being the voice of others, and also being connected, for all the women to have a kind of collaborative and supportive network that they can be all connected together. That is also one of the main things to me. So having these kind of events is one of the ways, and we all are going to be there to support each other.
Awesome. Allyship. I love that. What about Maria? You want to share with us?
Yes, of course. Actually, my answer to your question regarding the status quo, for me, status quo is unethical AI products. So say no to unequal and unethical AI products. So the sad status quo of today is that we agree to using our data to unfair recommendations, to unequal algorithms, as long as it doesn't concern us or our family or our children or our closest friends. This is how it works. And actually, when I'm currently in Europe, in Poland, so I'm very comfortable. I'm in the European Union, and I know that some of you are in Canada right now. So this is very privileged place, right? But still, we are producing the products that sometimes follow the bias that we create that are not biased for us. So we as Logic AI, we are challenging the status quo with our product, Rec AI, that is ethical, and I believe that so can you.
Awesome, great. Rima, how do you want to choose a challenge?
I'm going to build on what Maria said. We as humans, we managed to build a collective mind, filled with biases and unethical biases, and a mind that is not suitable for solving global challenges, for collaborating, and maybe with AI, you have a second chance to build a better collective mind. You have a second chance to, remove some of these biases and collaborate and build and solve for global challenges. And it starts with you, it starts with me, it starts with each one of us. Let's think differently. Let's remember that we can, using AI, actually we really can. It's available. It's really possible for us to build completely new collective intelligence, to solve completely new, using completely new intelligence, completely new data. So let's move away. The way I would say we challenge status quo by thinking differently, moving away from old habits of thinking. And every time we're about to solve a problem, let's consider solving it in new ways. Let's consider that there is a new data set, whether in our mind or outside or somewhere. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys, for sharing your thoughts and insights today. I know that every single one of you some of you actually are working mom, and this is a working day, so you took the time to be here. I am super appreciative and very grateful for you taking the time to be here and sharing your insights and experiences with this group of individuals who took the time to be here as well today. One of the things that I want to mention just before we adjourn this panel discussion is just a shout out to Invest Ottawa and Women in AI team. Both of these groups had incremental and very impactful effect in this panel happening and this event taking off. There are much more questions in our Q&A and in the chat box, but the time is constrained. So maybe that would be a discussion point for the next panel discussion that we're going to have in a couple of months. So stay tuned. If you are in Canada and you want to join the Canadian chapter of Women in AI, get in touch with me, or you can get in touch with the actual organizations through LinkedIn page. I really appreciate your time, guys, and I wish you a very great day ahead. Bye, everyone.